Happy Sunday and welcome back to Lalande, where today we are sitting in the entrance hall of the chateau because this is the room in which I met our ghost, Henri. I promised to tell you about him around Halloween, so here we are. I'm going to tell you all about Henri, and at the same time, whilst I'm telling you this story, you will see some images of the attic that we have not touched yet, because many of you have asked to see the unrestored parts of the chateau. This is the ancient wing of the chateau, which dates from the 15th or 16th century, and the attic was remodelled in the 19th to turn it into servants' quarters and hasn't been touched since then. So everything you see is original and it's in the state that we found it. The old peeling original wallpapers, even the stand where the valet would hang a jacket to keep it beautifully neat and tidy. Everything is as it was up there. The one thing that the images won't convey is the smell. So whilst you're looking at them, I would like you to imagine an overwhelming smell of bat poo, because that's what it's like up there. And the ceiling, which is crumbling and about to fall down, must have about a ton of bat poo above it. I suspect it's the main insulation for this chateau. And also, just above that crumbling ceiling lives our screech owl, which makes creepy, eerie, screeching, heavy breathing noises in the night, and was very scary when we first moved in because it took us a few months to work out where on earth the noise was coming from. One day I would love to make that space into a beautiful apartment because it has its own entrance up the oldest of our spiral staircases, and I think that that would make such a romantic remote getaway for people. But at the same time, I think the reason it's been left till so late is that I can't quite bear to touch it. I love seeing it as it is. I love the sense of time travel that I get whenever I walk up there. Sometimes when I'm alone at the chateau, I just go into that space and somehow let it wash over me and feel the past and try to imagine who lived up there and what they were gossiping about. A few years ago, a friend of mine had arranged to meet a famous French medium here at the chateau to talk about things that had nothing to do with the chateau or with me and that were private to them, and so I left them to it and I was in the kitchen. But soon someone came running through to the kitchen and said, "Stephanie, you must come because Patricia, the medium, absolutely needs to speak to you. She has a message for you." So I came through bearing tea with no idea what to expect. For what follows, I think it's best if I turn to her own words on the matter, because she wrote about her encounter with Henri in her book, L'invisible et la science, which is Science and the Invisible. It's a book in which she talks about her theory that the dead use the bodies of mediums to communicate their spirit through to the physical world. So she feels as though she has taken over her brain, her arm if she's doing automatic writing. They're taken over by another spirit. And throughout, she talks about various different things that have happened in her life that have led her to believe this. And at one point, she talks about coming here and meeting Henri. The book is in French, so I've translated the section about Henri into English, and I'll read it to you, but it is her words, just translated into English. "I have a remarkable anecdote of an event which happened very recently. I had agreed to visit a chateau in the Berry which I had never been to before. I was driving there, and 10 kilometres before my destination, I started to recognise all of the countryside around me. I mused, I've taken this road 1,000 times before. Strangely, I'd never been to that part of the world, but as I arrived in front of the gates of the chateau, I thought, I know this place. I've lived here. I'm home. As I walked into the courtyard, I finally understood. A long-departed owner was imprinting his memories of this place into my brain. Upon entering the imposing chateau, I met the current proprietor, a charming Englishwoman who is renovating the building and organising musical events there. That's me. I quickly saw that someone was expecting me. A spirit, whom I could see, was standing behind her. It was a tall, elderly gentleman with a lofty brow. His demeanour was sad and austere, but he seemed very kind. I told the woman of his presence and relayed his words to her. Henri is here with us. He was one of the illustrious owners of this chateau, and he died in 1850, shortly after the fire that ravaged this place. Maybe you can't sense him, but he's here, everywhere. He resides here, he lives with you. He wants, most of all, to thank you for buying and for breathing life back into this home. You are bringing him joy. He had moved on to the next world, but has returned to help you in your renovation, which is so precious to him. He will see it through with you, and once again, he thanks you. In fact, when 10 kilometers from the chateau I started to recognize my surroundings, I was simultaneously Patricia Daré, who was driving her car and looking at a landscape that she did not know, and this man, Henri, who recognized all that he saw and who made me feel the emotions that were inspired in him. It's as though he was saying to me, look at the beauty around you. This is my land. I know every inch of it by heart. I've passed on horseback here countless times. This is always my experience when I'm in contact with a spirit. They make me understand who they are by making me live their very nature. I feel that the deceased is somehow using the brain of the medium in order to communicate. This is the case when a medium passes on a message, as in the above example. In another section of her book, she goes on to say something that I really like, which is, old houses and ancient haunted chateaux don't only have entities that manifest themselves there, but they're also places where numerous memories have been conserved. Their walls tell the stories of the history and the dramas that have happened there. And I so hope that that's true. I love the idea that the walls of Lalande are somehow impregnated with years, centuries of history and drama, of love and tragedy and kindness and laughter and joy. And I wish that I could somehow unlock those secrets and hear what's happened in the past. There are other fascinating details of that experience that didn't make it into her book. One of the things that fascinated me the most was her description of seeing the chateau through his eyes. And as we were standing in this room, she told me that she wasn't seeing the room as it is today. She was seeing it as it was in Henri's time. And that was very interesting to me because we had originally thought that this had been built after the fire in the 19th century, this entire wing that we're sitting in now. When we first moved in, this room was used as a dining room and it had 1970s orange tongue and groove panelling with a rather pretty toile de Jouy wallpaper above it. And in this wall, there was a small porcelain stove where they could warm the plates before eating. I decided that that whole 1970s look of the panelling wasn't going to work, so I needed to remove the panelling and therefore everything else needed to come out as well. And it was a shame because the little stove was very pretty, though we've actually kept it to use somewhere else in the future. But as we were dismantling it, to our extraordinary surprise, we found what is clearly a 15th or 16th century fireplace behind it. And we realised that the internal walls of this wing are still original. They're a metre thick. And in fact, this was the original wing of the chateau, but was rebuilt and remodelled after the fire. So Henri would have known this part of the house, and he would obviously have known it decorated in a completely different way. And I just love the fact that we're not separated from the past through space. Everything that happened in this room happened in this very spot. We're only separated from the past through time. And I love the idea that perhaps time can be somehow parallel or superimposed, and that everything that's ever happened is happening here now, and that perhaps that's what ghosts are, just a glimpse into another time that's happening in the same place that we are now. I like feeling close to the people who've lived here before. I like feeling that it would be possible to just jump into their time and see what they've experienced. By far the loveliest thing that Henri said to me was that he wanted to help us in our renovations, but that obviously he could not do so physically or financially, but that he was going to help by drawing the right people to this chateau and getting us help that way. And I can honestly say that from the moment I had that conversation in this room with Henri, everything about life at Lalande has changed. Before that, we were rather stuck in time. It was like Sleeping Beauty's castle where everything was asleep. Everything I did was just to improve the chateau in the bits that you can't see. So we did a lot of work. We did the renovations to the electrics, to the plumbing, to the heating. We added geothermal, we added a septic tank. But I can't say that we were really living in this chateau to the full. After speaking to Henri, wonderful people started to come to visit the chateau, rather out of the blue, people who helped us a lot in our journey and helped to make this into the business that it is today. We were contacted by Escape to the Chateau DIY telling us about a new show in England which would be a little daytime show and would I be interested in being involved. I thought it would be great fun to take part, but little did I know the transformative power that that would have for life at Lalande and how that would bring this chateau to the attention of so many people around the world who've shown such an interest and who seem to care about the place and who've joined us, albeit at a distance, in loving this house and in wanting it to improve and to be restored and to come back to its former glory. I feel incredibly blessed that Lalande not only has a ghost, but has the nicest ghost that anyone has ever heard of. A man who is helping to restore this house in the way that he knows best, which is by bringing beautiful, wonderful people to stay here with us and to help us. And I feel that. I feel it every day. I feel that we're supported by people all around the world. And for that, cheers to Henri. Still at dinner parties today, we sometimes leave an empty space with a glass of wine for Henri to join us. When we were speaking to him here in this room, I told Patricia to let him know that he was absolutely welcome and that he did not need to move on if he didn't want to. This is an open house for all kind of people, be they living or dead. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing a little bit more about chateau life. If you love chateaus anywhere near as much as I do, please subscribe to this channel. There'll be a lot more about chateaus and palaces and renovations and history in the future. Happy Sunday, and I hope you had a great Halloween. And cheers to those who help us from beyond the grave.